Right, welcome everybody to the Planning, Regulatory and Licensing Committee for Wednesday the 12th of October. Before I actually start the agenda, I'll ask Erin to read out the usual paragraph.
Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating areas will be in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating areas, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings as outlined above. And if I could ask all members to make sure their mobile phones are switched off, please.
Okay, and there is an item which I've agreed to take as an added item. Hopefully you've all received a copy concerning the taxi licensing driver assessment. You all got a copy? Yeah. Okay. I'll take that lower down the agenda after the planning application is already on it. Okay. So item 1, any apologies for absence, please?
Councillor Ernie Goldsworthy.
Any other apologies for absence? No other apologies? Item 2, any declarations of interest? Any declaration of interest? No? Okay. Item 3, that's the fact-finding visit for Monday the 3rd of October. You take yeah. Can I have a member to move those minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Smith.
Second. Second, thank you.
Can you please now? That's been agreed. Thank you. I beg your pardon. Let's start again. Item 4. It's the former Merthyr Tydfil General Hospital, High Street, P/16/0033, and David Cross is going to take this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the former Merthyr Tydfil General Hospital building, which is situated in a prominent position along High Street, adjacent to the junctions of Gwali de Garth and Alexander Road. The former hospital building is situated in the town centre conservation area and has been identified as a locally listed building for its historical and architectural importance. The building was most recently used as a nursing home and has been vacant now for a number of years. And whilst the exterior of the building is in reasonable condition, there is evident signs of neglect, with parts of the building deteriorating further. Planning permission is now being sought to convert the building to accommodate 23 dwellings, comprising 9 one-bedroom dwellings, 10 two-bedroom dwellings and 4 three-bedroom dwellings. There are also 2 extensions to be constructed on the rear wings of the building, and some of the more unsympathetic modern additions to the building would be removed, such as the flat roof corridor that links the wings of the building to the rear, and the canopy at the front of the building. But otherwise, the majority of the building will be retained, with the external features on the elevations being restored and repaired. The hard standing area to the front of the building would be resurfaced, and a total of 6 parking spaces would be provided, and any additional parking requirements would be accommodated along the adjoining highways. As a result of the consultation exercise, no objections were raised either from internal or external consultees. However, we did receive 5 letters of objection. Primarily, the concerns were raised in respect of the additional traffic generated in the area and the additional cars that would be parking along Gwali de Garth and Alexander Road. Some of the other concerns related to highway safety, with pedestrians crossing the road, children playing in the area, damage to neighbouring properties, noise and disturbance from the proposed communal garden area, and the disruption to existing services. Since preparing this initial report, we've had a further 3 letters of objection received, each raising similar concerns as before in respect of the parking issues in the area, which would be exacerbated by the development. The merits of the application is set out in the detail in the planning consideration section of the report. In essence, the proposed development would enable the building of historic importance to be refurbished and brought back into beneficial use, which would enhance the character and appearance of the town centre conservation area. The residential use of the building is considered to be appropriate and would be in a sustainable location with good access to public transport and local services. Although the development would not give rise to highway safety concerns, it is accepted that the development would have an impact on parking along the highway. Indeed, given the size of the building and the limited space for parking within the site, any reasonable use of the building would inevitably have an impact on the highway. In this instance, it's considered the merits of the proposal outweigh the on-street parking issues, and it is therefore recommended that the application be approved subject to the conditions set out on pages 12 to 14 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, and I'll take the opportunity, if I may, of asking the first question, and that's in relation to parking. And can I ask you, David, if perhaps you can expand further on that, because I think the main thrust of the objections is in relation to parking. 6 are envisaged for the front. I presume they could possibly put a few more there with the redesign in the front. And I understand, bearing in mind that previously it was a nursing home, and before that a very busy general hospital with a lot more people going back and forth there, frankly, when the nursing home was there. Could you answer?
Yeah, obviously the building was a nursing home and hospital, so the traffic generated from that would have had an impact on the area. I think given the size of the building, it's inevitable, whatever use, whether it continued as a nursing home or is changed to this proposal for residential use, it's going to have an impact to an extent on the highway. There isn't really much other option other than short of demolishing the whole building and building something smaller to provide more off-street parking. But then as a result of that, we would lose quite an important building to the conservation area.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
On the answer, Dave, on the knockdown, they keep in the front and the clock or the general hospital, so as they drive up, more or less it still be the same, because it is a listed building and it's gone back many years.
It's not a listed building, it's a locally listed building, so it doesn't have the same statutory protection, but it's identified in the conservation character appraisals to be one of particular importance to the area. The proposal is to basically restore a lot of the features. So on the front elevation, you'll see there's sort of stone balustrades, some of which have been sort of lost over time, and they're proposing to reinstate that. The only thing that would be removed really from the front is the canopy, which is an addition to the property. You know, so the original historic fabric of the building would be retained and restored.
Chair, because we're looking for extra room for car parking, so if we do that, we won't have the extra spaces to put car parking in front.
Yeah, to the front, you can realistically, you could probably maybe accommodate 1 or 2 extra. The ones they've provided at the front are actually to accommodate disabled parking, so it's more accessible. They've also got to allow for turning manoeuvres there, because we wouldn't want vehicles to reverse onto that corner, which is, you know, would be a problem then. There's also an access to the side there where it leads to the sort of refuge area, so yeah.
Any other questions? Yep, Councillor Chaplin, and then...
Thank you, Chair. It's the applicant. Is it Dr. Daz or Mrs. Daz?
It says Dr. Daz, but when I've met them, it's a Mrs.
I ask that for a reason, because there have been reports that Dr. Daz, who was involved in a number of nursing homes, is not able to be taken to court because of an accident that he's suffered. So,
Well, I think that's a fact, that he was subject to an assault. And, you know, I think it's Mrs. Daz's, you know, handling everything connected with the development. Got it.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the community garden at the rear, is this going to be an open access for outsiders, or is it a sealed garden?
The access to it is still primarily through the building. There's a lobby area so you would pass from the front entrance through to the rear courtyard. The removal of the annexes there at the back will open it up, so that would lead into the different entrances for the dwellings. So it's a communal garden, but it's also the primary entrance then for the individual houses. But yeah, it's all enclosed.
The reason I asked that question is obviously if outsiders go in there, you can get the noise and disturbance. But if it's not, that's good.
Any other questions? No? Any comments? Yes, Councillor John.
it's in relation to planning obligations. Most of the applications we're getting now appear to be saying that the development would be financially unviable, therefore we're not seeking any planning obligation. This seems to be a negation of our policy that anything over 10 houses should provide...
That's a comment. It's a comment. Yeah. I'm just checking. Any other comments? Yeah.
Yeah, it is a comment, and possibly I could be ruled out of order, but I did say in the side room that I think with the history of this site that possibly if the committee are in agreement, we should be asking the person responsible for the naming of this site to bear in mind the historical names of the site. And also outside the hospital there was a statue. If we are keeping the frontage of that property, the statue, I understand, is located currently in St Tydfil's Hospital, that consideration be given to reciting that statue at its right and proper place.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Million.
Just a tiny matter, Chair, thank you. 5th bullet point down, I assume it should say parking and refuse collection, not refuge collection. And I'm a little bit surprised, if I'm honest, a bit disappointed you didn't spot it first, Clay.
Yes, yeah, you can't spot everything, Councillor Million. Very good. That'll be corrected.
Back, I did make my comments, but it could be left in a little bit of mid-air now if the council committee doesn't make any kind of decision on my comment.
Ask one of the officers to say anything on that. Well, it's on the naming, I think, on the
Statue and the naming, I think, are very important.
When in terms of the naming, that would be down to the estates department. They usually involved in the naming of new properties and setting out new addresses, so you could approach them. In terms of the statue, well, if it's down to the landowner really whether they want to, and you know, you'd have to speak to perhaps regeneration to whether it could be moved or not. It's not really part of this proposal though.
The statue is in St Tydfil's as a temporary measure, or it's been some time now. St Tydfil's site is obviously going to be hopefully developed and so forth. So, you know, plus we could seek that this is put back in place because it is the right and proper place to do it. And if it's possible, I would move that, Chair, that we make approaches at the right and proper time. This is put back in its site in.
We can certainly pass your comments on to the applicant and make the feeling of committee known. What I would say is the statue itself is listed, so it would need LB listed building consent to move it back. But we can certainly let the applicant know, you know, the comments the committee have made in relation to it.
Alan or not, because that statue been there forever and a day as far as I'm concerned, you know, and it's a part of the history of Merthyr. So to move that and put it outside that area, it'd be wrong for us. I think it should be part of the new development and history all in together.
Can I just clarify, Jude? It's listed for it to be in St Tydfil's, is it?
No, it's original siting, as I understand it, was the General Hospital.
It was.
And then it was moved to St Tydfil's.
Instead, we'll just raise the issues with the Regeneration Department and the applicant, and we'll make the views of the committee known. Someone from the planning department can report back to members following the relevant discussions.
Any other comments? The
Would
comment?
that possibly be put in as a condition to the applicant? No?
No, it can't be a condition of the permission, but we can certainly raise it with the applicant. It all depends whether the applicant owns the statue as well. I'm not quite sure of the ownership of the statue, but it may be that the applicant doesn't own the statue, so we can certainly raise it, but it can't be a condition of the permission.
Okay, any other comment? I just want to make the last comment. I mean, this building has been unoccupied for the last 15 years at least. It is not in a good condition. There's a history here of all sorts of things happening, antisocial behaviour, all sorts of problems with litter, etc. And I understand the concerns of some of the members of the residents living around there. But when you take into account, I think you said you had 8 in total. There's an awful lot of properties living around there, and my understanding, speaking to some of the residents, is that they welcome the fact that there is an application being seriously considered for this site, which has been empty for all those years. Can I ask a member to move the approval?
Move the report, Chair.
Second.
And it's been seconded by Councillor Simon William.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application was a first floor extension. Members will recall that the application was deferred from committee on the 14th of September 2016 for a fact-finding site visit, and that took place on the 3rd of October 2016. There were no new issues raised at the fact-finding visit that would result in a change to the recommendation. As such, the application is recommended for permission, subject to the conditions highlighted on page 19 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, members? No? Any comments, members? No? If not, could you vote, please? Sorry, could I have a member to move the motion? Is there a member to move it, please? by Councillor Mansbridge. Can you vote now, please? That's been carried. Thank you. Next application is in relation to the former Sandbrook Day Centre, Queen's Road, and there's a report there, pages 21 to 28, and it is who is taking this item as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application is for the erection of a detached dwelling. The application site is one of 12 plots which have previously been granted outline planning permission on the former Sandbrook House and Sandbrook Day Centre site. As such, the principle of the residential development on this site is acceptable. There would be no objections as a result of either the consultation exercise undertaken or the publicity exercise undertaken. The modern design of the dwelling and the use of external materials which are sympathetic to the area is considered acceptable. The construction of a dwelling would also not result in any detrimental impact on the amenities of the future occupiers of the two plots adjoining this residential plot. There would also be adequate off-street parking and private garden amenity space. As such, the application is recommended for permission, subject to the conditions highlighted on page 27 of the report.
Okay. Questions from members? Councillor Chaplin.
Is this a self-build development?
Yes, it is.
Any other questions from members? No? Any comments? No comments? Well, if there's no comments, you'll see the recommendation, which is on the back of the report. Could I have a member to move the approval, please?
I move it, Chair.
It's been moved. Councillor Slater, is there a second to that? Been moved by Councillor Chaplin. Could you now vote, please? And that's been carried. The next application is in respect of Autumn Leaves Ground Lane, and that's to consider report of the Corporate Director Place and Transformation. It's pages 29 to 32, and Judith's going to take this report.
Thank you. This application is being presented to committee for determination as Councillor Clive Tovey is the applicant. Planning permission is sought to change the use of the existing pool house to self-contained holiday accommodation, along with minor alterations to the external elevations. No representations have been received as a result of the publicity and consultation exercise carried out. The merits of the proposal are considered in detail in the planning considerations section of the report, and the recommendation on page 32 is that the application be approved subject to conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from members? No questions? Any comments? If not, can a member move the recommendation on page 32? Been moved by Councillor Alan Jones.
I'll second, Chair.
Moved by Councillor Barrett. Could you now vote, please? That was carried. Item 8 is the delegated decision report list. That's up for information. And that's it, isn't it? That's it.
I know it's unusual to comment on information reports, but I'd just like to congratulate the planning department on the number of applications that have been determined in this 2-month period.
Thank you, Councillor Chaplin. I'm sure that Judith will take that back to all the staff as well. Thank you. Okay, now then, we come to the added item on the agenda. And that's the taxi licensing driver assessment. It's a 2-page report And Paul Lewis, the licensing manager, is going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you this evening, members, is in relation to taxi licensing driver assessments. Members will be aware that the authority has adopted an application guidance process for applicants wishing to become a licensed hackney and or private hire driver. The authority is required by law to only license what they consider to be fit and proper persons to undertake these duties. In determining an applicant's fitness and propriety, we undertake a disclosure and bar in service check to reveal any past convictions, cautions, a DVL penalty point check, which will establish if any penalty points have been accrued for driving offences, and at present we also require the applicants to undertake a Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency taxi assessment. That test is above a normal driving requirement and is a test that they're appropriate to carry out driving duties. In September, the authority were advised by the DVSA that they were ceasing to provide taxi assessments with effect from the 31st of December 2016. In order to continue to assess the suitability of applicants' driving standards, the authority will now seek to appoint a replacement assessor to carry out such checks. To ensure continuity, we will seek a provider who is approved by the DVSA to carry out similar assessments to those that are already undertaken. Due to the short notice from DVSA, delegated authority is sought for the Trading Standards Licensing and Transport Manager to evaluate and appoint an assessor approved by the DVSA to undertake future driving assessments. In addition to the report since it was submitted, we've also been advised by applicants that the DVSA is no longer accepting appointments between now and the 31st of December, so we are at a critical point of appointing a replacement in order that we can process new driver applications. So the recommendation before you today is that delegated authority be given to the Trading Standards Licensing and Transport Manager to evaluate and appoint an assessor approved by the DVSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions on the report? Councillor Barrett?
Thank you, Chair. Paul, where are these tests carried out?
They're done locally. The DVSA will have assessors in the area, and it's a calendar basis, basically, that when they're covering the Merthyr area, our drivers then who are waiting to complete their application will book a slot and can undertake the test locally.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Paul, what we're looking for now, right? We're looking to appoint an assessor full-time or Trading Standards going to do the assessment first and then appoint one after?
This has been sprung on, as I say, we've been given 3 months' notice. We're not the only ones, it's across the UK. There's a number of local authorities who operate the same as Merthyr, so we're all in the same boat. There's a number of companies have come forward who have got accredited assessors by the DVSA. They're private commercial companies, and they've approached us to offer their facility to take up the slack left over by DVSA. What I intend to do is to vet the private companies who are offering the service, that they fit and proper, that they have been accredited by the DVSA, and more importantly, that they've got a relevant pool of assessors in our area, so our drivers aren't forced, as Councillor Barrett picked up, that they're not forced to go further afield to do their test, that a local service can be provided. The pressing need for us is obviously we're banking up at the moment a number of applicants. So we've got we're looking to immediately appoint somebody to do it after suitable vetting takes place.
Councillor Jones?
Will there be any financial cost to the authority, Paul? Sorry.
No cost to the authority. The test, as it stands at the moment, is paid directly to the DVSA. In effect, what we do is we nominate them as our relevant assessor. The applicant pays them directly, and we'll be presented with a pass certificate, hopefully, for the applicant, and then we can just process the application that they've met the suitable standard. So there's no cost to the authority, and what I'll be looking for is whoever is appointed is of a similar cost, if not less, than what applicants are paying DVSA.
And the other thing, Chair, is that the short notice of this, can we express our concern to the DVSA that this really isn't on, you know, that particularly that December is bad enough, but particularly at now, they're not accepting any applications.
It's been discussed across the UK via the Institute of Licensing. Some authorities have actually only just brought a policy in to ask that applicants meet the DVSA, and within a week they had the letter saying we're no longer going to be doing it. So the way that this has been conducted has been short notice without any consideration to local authorities. DVSA did notify that they had notified local authorities of suitable assessors. They haven't. We've had to go and source that information ourselves. So the Institute of Licensing have raised their concerns at a national level of the short notice, and obviously the fact that the calendar up until the 31st of December appears to be full. So we were left in a position for the next 3 months. There's no applications that could be taken with the DVSA, even though they're still providing the service.
Yeah. Any other, Councillor Chapman?
Do we charge an administrative fee for processing the application?
Yeah, it's all part of the application process. It forms part of the overall application fee, that receiving the application and appropriately vetting it will form part of the fee. Again, there'll be no additional increase to applicants, subject to the suitable assessor being found.
Any other questions? Any comments? I mean, frankly, this is a dreadful way to run, well, what in effect, I suppose, is a business on behalf of the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. I mean, to give authorities, and taking into account this Christmas as well, barely 10 weeks to sort this out, is not the way to run things, frankly. Yes,
I agree with you, Clive. Can we just find out who dictated this? Who thought of this? Was it Welsh Government or is it from Central?
It's UK government. It's under the Government Department for Transport.
hold on.
It's the central government, and it's the Department for Transport would be the overarching body for DVSA.
So obviously it leads back to the UK government decision, in effect. Yes, is it
One comment, Chair. We had an email this morning, the Independence Day, because the Independent group throughout Great Britain are taking this up with the government.
Good. Thank you. No other comment? If not, I have a member to move the recommendation that's given delegate. Be moved by Councillor Chaplin.
Second.
Seconded. Vote, please. That's carried. Thank you for that. Item 9. Any other business deemed urgent by the Chair? I have none. Thank you all very much for your attendance.